All right, everybody, welcome to another episode of Live from My Drum Room. My guest today is an old friend, and I'm so happy to have him here with me today. A true legend in the drum world. You know him from the band Primus, but from many other projects. And I'd like you to please welcome the great Tim Alexander here with me today on Live from My Drum Room.
I was just watching you on your
Oh, you
show.
oh, cool, cool.
Yeah, really
Pretty,
cool.
thanks, buddy. Well, it's
Yeah.
better now that you're on, so
Well, that's awesome.
thanks for being here.
Thank
Thank you.
you. Thank you. It's been a long time since we have been chatting and hanging out.
I know, I know. I was thinking about, we've hung out a whole bunch. I was thinking about all the times I'd come out to the Bay Area. We'd always if you were home, obviously when you were on the road, we couldn't, but many times I'd come out there and we'd go out and have dinner and hang. And sometimes you'd take me to one of your hot spots and, uh, and show me a good time. No, we had some fun.
Yeah, I remember there's a picture that I has popped up. And I believe it's us with Steve Smith in Mill Valley. Oh my
Is it?
God, you pulled it up.
I
Jesus.
pulled it up. Man, I can't believe you were
What?
thinking. I had it all ready to go, and you were thinking of it. That's incredible.
I know. It's so funny. Look at our cell phones. Oh my God.
Yeah, I think I'm holding a camera.
Oh,
I think
yeah,
you and
you are.
you and Steve have phones. I'm
Oh
holding a
God.
camera, and that man in the middle between us. Well, that's Steve Smith, his wife Diane, and
Right,
that guy. You remember Eddie Kramer? He was the Zildjian sales rep for
right,
Northern
right.
Eddie, and me and you, and that was at that Italian restaurant in Mill Valley, California.
That's right. I
And
know, man.
I'm going to say around 95 or 96, something
Yeah.
like something
Well,
like
it says
that.
96 right on top.
Oh, you're right. 96. Okay, there you
It's-
go. Yeah. Because I think Steve, I have this memory of Steve telling us he had just for the first time had reformed with Journey and recorded that record that he did, and then like he didn't tour with them, but he like did a record with the whole band, and
Mhm.
they had a big ballad, like a big hit song on it, and then he got back with them years later. But anyway, I remember he was telling us about that, and that was such a great hang in Mill Valley, that hotel
Yeah,
I used to stay at. Yeah,
that was amazing, man. I
yeah.
remember I saw him, when I was, gosh, 18 or something. I saw him doing a drum clinic in Scottsdale at the drum store that used to, I don't know if they're still there. It used to be, but which is the store that I bought my very first impulse ride.
Okay,
Children was at that store. It was all dirty and dusty. It was sitting on the bottom of the cymbal rack, those real tall ones. They were just layers. And then I was looking for something that kind of looked like Stuart Copeland's stuff.
his rude ride. Yeah,
Yeah, I was looking for something and I saw that one and I was like, oh, it sounds neat. So, and then it turned out it was a Zildjian Impulse. And that cymbal has been on like almost every recording I've done. But
wow.
same place as where I saw Steve doing his one of his drum clinics, and it was just
I think I know the name of the shop. Was it Creative Drum Shop?
that could be.
Creative.
This
Yeah.
is in the 80s,
Yep.
so
There's a
yeah.
there's a friend of mine who you might remember who worked at Milano Music, Dave Jewell. Do you
Oh
remember?
yeah, God,
Remember?
those names. Yes.
Yeah, Dave put a comment up yesterday and said he remembered you buying something from him when he ran the drum shop at Milano Music in Scottsdale.
I'm
Uh,
sure. Yeah. And
so
that's at that place I saw probably my first drum clinic was with Rayford Griffin.
oh yeah,
I,
bad dude.
oh my God.
Yeah,
I was just completely floored.
yeah, yeah.
And it was a small room, and he had this Tama kit, uh, I forget what it was called, but it had really cool dark wood grain. And I was like on the floor, like right between his kick drums, like sitting there, and I couldn't. He he blew my mind. So
Yeah.
I've always tried to mention him as much as possible because he was a really, sorry, all my power flew out here. He was a really, really influential drummer
Yeah.
on me for a period of time. And then that's when I listened to him. And this is the interesting thing. Steve and him both are linked with Jean-Luc Ponty,
Yeah, that's right. Of course.
both those drummers. And I didn't know that, you know, and I learned later that that was Steve's first, uh,
Kind of big
his
gig.
deeper out of school, right?
That's right. He
Yeah,
left
yeah.
Berkeley to go on tour with Jean-Luc Ponty. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Wow.
I thought that was interesting. And then I got into Jean-Luc Ponty listening to Rayford, and wow, wow, you guys, Rayford was just is
Yeah.
amazing. I don't know what he's up to, but I had talked to him a few times, and yeah, he's incredible, man.
Left hand, like an open-handed player, right? Left hand lead, like Lenny
Left hand
White,
lead, but
Billy Cobham.
I think he can do both.
Yeah, maybe so.
Can
I've seen
he?
him. I
Yeah.
remember years ago, Tim, he was doing a gig, almost like a Motown or pop gig. There was like a Earth, Wind and Fire, this triple bill of like Earth, Wind and Fire, and like maybe another Motown, like a Motown band, and Rayford was one of the drummers, and Sonny Emery was Earth, Wind and Fire's drummer, who's a good friend. And I'd met Rayford before, but I went over and I was chatting with him, and what a cool, down to earth guy.
Yeah.
And he played the shit out of that gig, man. He was just so, like you say, the point being that he can play all that like fusiony Jean-Luc Ponty stuff, but then he can
Yeah.
groove, like just play like a really great, solid groove.
Yeah, back in those early 90s, I think when I think I talked with him at a NAMM show or something, and he was saying that he was doing these like programming for, I want to say Patti LaBelle.
Oh, that could have been it.
Is that right?
That could have been who he was playing with. Yeah.
So, so yeah, I think he might have done that, but and it really tripped me out. I was like, what do you mean programming? What do you know? So it was like, you could play that. And it really just blew my mind. I didn't really understand it. Now that we know today in the world of electronics and
Yeah.
how, you know, it's a whole art form to make the computer sound like a real drummer.
I know. I know.
And and I guess there's a need for it. And he was doing it back then
Yeah.
on like those original drum machines. He was making it sound real. I think he told me he would incorporate like all the dynamics that the machine didn't have, and trying to make
Wow.
it have a really good feel.
Yeah.
So yeah, it blew my mind, but that was the first I heard of like drum programming, and I didn't even know how it was done. So
Right. Right.
yeah, but that
Yeah.
was yeah, that's Rayford. He's amazing.
And you guys are both Tama guys, so you've had a chance to probably hang out a bit at a NAMM show or something, or
Yeah,
one way. Yeah, that's
yeah. It's been a long time, so I
yeah,
don't know
yeah.
where he's at now, but yeah.
Well, let's back up a second.
Sure.
You're self-taught drummer, right? Did you?
So yeah, man. Self-taught. I just banging started on the couch, uh, setting up different pillows because firmer ones were like higher pitched, and then softer ones would get deeper.
Oh, that's great.
That's where it started, and I would come home from school and just play Elvis live at Madison Square Garden.
No shit. Well,
Do the
yeah,
whole thing. I would do the whole thing, and that's where it started. Understanding the and the drummer was Ronnie Tutt.
Ronnie Tutt, melodic concert toms.
Yeah, man. If you guys, and there's another guy, just huge double bass concert tom,
Yes.
with like 15,
Great.
just amazing. And that I realized that that was my first exposure to like a large drum kit. Not in my first, let me rephrase that. That was my first exposure to drums live, someone playing them, and it was a monstrous kit. So that to me was that's that's a drum kit. That's how you do it.
Hmm.
And then the way he played with Elvis, um, I'm putting it together now, was understanding how, like, the emotion that Elvis was giving on stage.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
How Elvis and Ronnie had this communication going. And whatever Elvis did, the drums are what made it
Hmm.
hit the people. Whenever he would move real crazy, Ronnie was there to make it uh, tangible, like where you could feel it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like you feel the drums in a big concert hall. You don't, if Elvis shakes his leg or whatever it is, you don't feel that. So it was Ronnie that was making all that kind of connect to everyone. And it was through the rhythms. And they were powerful, like, I don't know how to use the right word, tribal.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
A lot of tribal drumming. And this is for Elvis. Now,
Hmm. Hmm.
most people think Elvis, just
Yeah.
just
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
whatever. But man, you watch the show, and Ronnie is just doing full tribal drumming and and it made Elvis move. It made him go. And that's where, at a very young age, I started realizing um, that emotional impact that rhythms have on people. It's not about just playing beats. It's about the enhancing, and it's almost like a, what do you call it? Like, in voodoo drumming, or, like when they get into those states of mind, the drums are just creating this hypnotic, rhythmic
Hmm.
uh, atmosphere that people's minds and spirits just start going places.
Kind of almost leaving their body or something. Yeah. Like, yeah.
Yeah. And that's
Yeah.
all rhythm. The rhythms are what guides the body to that. And it's the same thing with Elvis. It's like those rhythms guided him in his movements, and they talk back and forth, not physically, but his movements and his drumming. Um, yeah. And at a young age, I didn't know what was going on. I'm just kind of really lately, I've been diving into the concept of, like, what is it we do when we're on the drums? Like, why
Hmm.
are we why are we playing this? How does it affect someone who's listening to it?
Right.
Why,
Right.
like, people are listening, most likely, unless you've decided, okay, I'm in practice mode and I'm just going to sit at the drums and I'm just going to work on things, patterns, grooves. But even so, then, it's like those grooves and those patterns, they're coming from something in you. There's something in you that's going, play this, play that, play this. And then that's where I start thinking, well, why? Why did I just sit down to do it this way? And that's where my headspace has been for a while now, in terms of trying to understand that more and trying to figure out
Hmm.
ways to say that,
Yeah.
ways to make it learnable, or to help people access that, because that is what we do, unless, which I know I've gotten a lot of messages, especially recently, that a lot of people are stuck, stagnant, not creative, just not
Hmm.
inspired, passionate. And believe me, I go through that all the freaking time.
Hmm. Hmm.
And
I just got to say, Tim, for a lot of people, myself included, that's probably hard for people to believe and understand. And I think it's so cool that you say that because, it's easy to look at you and listen to the grooves that you create and think that there's like boundless ideas of creativity coming out of you. But I think like you're showing your human side, like, man, I go through that myself, like you hit that creativity, that wall of sort of like coming up with something creative. But sorry,
yeah,
continue.
I've recently, no, that's great, man. And thank you for saying that. Um, I've been recently reading or listening to on Audible that book, the War of Art, not the art of war, but the War of Art.
The War of Art.
It's amazing, and it all talks about the creative process and creativity and how um, how in the past been a lot of uh, there's been a lot of belief that our creativity comes from the muses, and they come
Hmm.
in, but you have to be available and you have to be ready to do it, and that's when they come. And so it's really interesting. I'm just still going through it, but it kind of is like that, where the creativity you're just kind of really praying to the gods that it comes when you need it.
Hmm. Yeah.
And the only way it knows to come is when you're sitting there ready to do it. And um, and sometimes it really is hard to feel like I have something to say, because I definitely when you're writing songs, for me it's really it's kind of a little bit easier to go along with a melody. Um, but if you're just sitting there by yourself in your room and you're trying to
Yeah.
figure out like what to do, that's where the questions really start popping up for me, because I just sitting and just I rarely just sit down and like play a beat. Like I just do not enjoy that. If I do, when I just sit down and I'm just fresh, just sitting there, my hands just start moving like patterns, and then I'll get into this mental kind of state of repeating, and it's almost like a meditation.
Hmm.
And the groove stuff might come later, but the big part is just getting into this state of creativity.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's kind of
Yeah.
where my head's at, when talking about the understanding what we do.
Yeah.
Drums, not being a drum machine. I don't want to be a drum machine. That's one aspect of music and art, and our drum sets are completely different. Like, it's an instrument.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Exactly. I wanted to just step back a second too. When we were talking about you coming home from school and playing on your pillows to Elvis live at Madison Square Garden. That's awesome. All the years I've known you, you've never told me that.
oh
And I
no,
love it. No,
wow,
I had no, and Ronnie Tutt, no one
yeah,
talks enough about Ronnie Tutt. He was rest his soul, he was a monster.
yeah, my
Great,
gosh,
great drummer.
yes. You can
Um,
listen to that stuff, man. It's incredible.
yeah. I wanted to ask you, so I would count him, I guess, as one of your early influences. Were there other kind of more mainstream rock drummers, the
Well, when
obvious
I
like
hit
John
my
Bonhams
yeah,
and how old were you when you were doing that with the pillows? Like 10, 11, 12?
younger than that.
Younger than that. Okay.
Yeah, younger than that. Um, walking home from school, and then just that's what I did, with my time.
Hmm.
And um, but let's see. Yeah, and then so after that, just hearing songs on the radio, not really knowing anything about drums or drumming or drummers or learning drums. One of the craziest things was during that time as a kid, I remember being in class and there was a music class as a kid, and I played the snare drum. And we were doing the theme to the show MASH.
Oh yeah.
I didn't understand the concept of the rhythms and the melody. So I I was just playing the melody on the snare because I knew the
Yeah.
show. And I just that just always pops into my head how disconnected as a kid I was to that concept of
Hmm.
melody and rhythm. I was playing the snares along with the melody, and so it was funny. But um, as I grew up through that time, just hearing the music on the radio, and then I ended up in Michigan, south of Detroit, going into middle school and junior high and high school there, and that's where I started discovering more rock music, and that's where my around 12 or 13 is where I really started to my mind started really focusing on the drums mostly. And I remember listening to Aerosmith, and when I heard Hold the Line by Toto,
Oh yeah.
when I first heard that on the radio, like I heard that at the end when he goes doom doo doo ga doo doom doo doo ga with the bass drum.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, I just couldn't believe it, and I would just repeat it. I think I got like a little 45 back then. For those who don't know, you buy
Yeah.
a vinyl. It's only one song, and it's about that big, and you pop it on the record player, and it just plays. So I would listen to that over and over. I didn't know anything about what's going on, and I really didn't understand that I could get lessons for some reason. It
Yeah.
never occurred to me. I always thought I just listen, and
Figure
probably
it
from
out.
a kid and copying Ronnie Tutt.
Hmm.
And that's how I think I learned that that's how you do it. So I'm a teenager and I'm listening to a lot of rock music and stuff. And then Jeff Porcaro, only that song though. I know it was never like, oh, I'm going to get all their records and stuff. It was only that song. Um, and then I heard Spirit of Radio on the radio. That was it. That's what I was like. It felt like a combination of it felt like I want to say jazz and rock combined, just because of the way that intro is. It's like there's no groove to it, it's all just all these accents and um yeah. So at that point Rush really hit me.
Yeah.
And then after that I was just like, oh, there's no one better than Rush. I don't want to hear anything else, which I regret now because my narrow mindset at that point was there just Neil Peart, but then also John Bonham was there as well.
Yeah.
And so those two became my main influences. And me and my friends went and saw Song Remains the Same in a movie theater, and it was very impactful. So those two things,
Yeah.
Neil and John, Rush, and Led Zeppelin.
Yeah. It's interesting too that I think a lot of people probably don't understand. Well, I shouldn't say they don't understand, but they're two very different type players, obviously, Neil and
Extremely.
Bonds.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I think that shows at a young age that you had a really open mind to, you weren't going to put yourself just in one bag and go, it's only Bonzo. That's all I'm going to listen to is just a guy that, that triplety Bonzo heavy groove, or go the other way and just go, I'm just going to listen to Neil. And it's, you know, again, totally different. And that, because I definitely, obviously, there's a lot of Neil kind of
Hmm.
influences in your playing, the whole melodic way that you build songs, compose songs. But I definitely hear the Bonzo element as well, and
Right.
when you want to sit down and like lay down a groove, you can do that, like Bonzo did.
Yeah, thank you. But what's interesting is there was no decision back then.
Yeah, yeah,
You're saying now
yeah,
how I didn't just pin myself into one thing. It there was no conscious anything. It was I heard the music and it just floored me. And then I heard Zeppelin and it did the same thing.
yeah, yeah,
And for whatever reason, those two guys were, what I connected with. And it took, you know, 30 years of getting to that point of where I could kind of get a grasp on maybe where their heads were when they were playing or writing, learning about how, like, I believe Zeppelin would do a lot of improvisation and come up with their stuff,
hmm,
and Neil was very calculated,
right, right,
writing his parts, and then those were the parts. He played it the same every show, not exactly the same over time. I think he figured out what worked best, and then that became kind of the standard. And sometimes it was a little different from the records, but um, yeah, those two guys were the big.
yeah, yeah. But and I think I don't want to speak for you, but for me, I'm older than you by like 5 years, but I grew up listening to like the Beatles and the Stones, and I love like the simplicity of Charlie and Ringo. But then Keith Moon, like I'd listen to like a drummer that was known for being very bombastic, and all over the place. And the point I'm making is I think both of us love the music that these drummers were part of. So it wasn't just I'm going to go in this direction with this drummer. It was just like I love the music of Led Zeppelin. I love the music of Rush.
Yes.
I love Neil. I love Bonzo. And it's like you had this open mind, and that it's kind of cool because that all kind of came into your drumming DNA. It was like the
Yeah.
basis of it.
Yeah. I feel like my mind wasn't open because my friends had way more broader range, like
Hmm.
listening to Pink Floyd, and
Yeah.
I don't get that at all.
Yeah.
Too slow. There's no nothing's happening, and
Yeah. Yeah.
uh, even some of the like AC/DC, like my friends were getting into that, and I was, it was too basic for me. My mind just wanted, I don't know, I just needed that complexity,
Hmm.
and
Yeah.
that complexity had to live within the music uh, foundation. The complexity had to be part of something that felt great. So you had to combine those elements. And Zeppelin and Rush did that really good.
Yeah.
Bonham's complexities were really subtle. They didn't mess with time that much, and they were all about the groove. But his playing was complex, and yet Rush's songs were complex sometimes, and it was very visible. And
Yeah.
then and then the magic in Neil was kind of the reverse, where he had the simplicity hidden inside of all that. So
Yeah.
I don't
Very cool.
think any of that makes any sense, but
It
you know,
does. It absolutely does. That's you broke it down perfectly. Man, that's great. And I have to tell you before I forget, there's a drummer that asked me to say hello to you named Winston Watson, who remembers you from Phoenix. And I
oh,
think he said he wrote me a note and he said that around this in the 80s. You were playing in Major Lingo and he was playing in
Yeah.
another band. And yeah, you guys used to cross paths. So
Wow. Well, hello, Winston.
yeah, he might be watching. So I want to give a shout out to him. He was playing with Bob Dylan for many years. Great
Oh,
drummer,
wow.
great
Very good.
guy. Yeah. So you grew up and you're playing in the Phoenix area. We were just talking about that. You played in some bands locally and
Well, I went from Michigan, um, and my stepdad at the time lost his job and got a job in Phoenix. So we moved to Arizona. And that's where I finished my last year of, finished my last year of high school. And I was working really just finding little crappy jobs and things to make some money and, had no direction or anything. My drums were literally sitting in a shopping cart. I had a 5-piece kit sitting in a shopping cart, and I had that on my balcony of my apartment. I had a studio apartment. And I used that cart. I would carry everything down to this big room down in the main office area where I could play sometimes.
oh wow. Yeah.
So the drums lived in that shopping cart. And, years go on, no direction in life, not sure. And my stepdad at the time, really, he was from the Navy. So he was like, you should go in the Navy. So I thought, what the hell? I didn't know anything. And I went and took the test, but I was applying for this nuclear program, I guess. I was going to be some kind of nuclear guy on a submarine or something. But I passed the basic test, but I missed the placement test for that field by 1 point, and they said you have to come back in like 3 months and then you can do it again. So during that time, I just realized what I was doing, and I'm like, this is not where I want to go.
Yeah.
So what happened is, my mom at the time had said I should open up the Yellow Pages and see if any studios need drummers. And this was, long before internet.
Sure. Yeah.
I opened up the big book, Yellow Pages, and I found recording studios in Phoenix and Scottsdale. And I called, and the second one was having auditions. And so I went in and auditioned, and all I could do at the time was copy Neil Peart. Neil Peart. That's the only thing I knew how to do. So they wanted me to play, and so I did a lame imitation of his drum solo. And they were like, "Okay, thank you." And I said, "Well, you're not fit for this position at the studio," but he says, "I know of a band that's looking for a drummer that you might want to check out." And that is how I got connected with Major Lingo.
Oh wow.
And to do that audition, I didn't have a car. I was living in Phoenix, and the audition is about 2 hours north in
Oh,
Arizona. So what I did was, my girlfriend at the time, her family lived in Flagstaff, which
mm-hmm.
is about, I think, 2.5 to 3 hours north. I put all my drums, I had my hardware in a golf bag from like Goodwill. I had like the bass drum was in a cardboard box. And some of the smaller drums were in pillowcases. I threw all that shit into the bottom of a Greyhound bus. I took the
Wow.
Greyhound to Flagstaff, and then her father drove me in his pickup truck to Jerome, which is the ghost town in Arizona. And I auditioned. So I did all that for the audition, and They
And
liked it,
you got the
and
gig. Yeah.
I got it. And at the time they were doing pretty well in Arizona. They could book gigs every weekend, 2, 3 nights a week, and the place is packed, and it's all cash, and it was cool. And so my first gig was a New Year's Eve show in Jerome, and I got paid all cash, and I made a bunch of money,
Wow.
and I said that was it. And I wasn't even old enough to be in the bar. I
Right.
was only like 18 or 19 at the time. And so, yeah, that's when I discovered this is the job I want to do. I want to play drums for money. And not for money, but and get paid.
And get paid. Yeah. Yeah.
And that was it. So that's what I did for 5 or 7, about 5 or 6 years. And then we moved out here to the Bay Area, San Francisco area. And we thought, well, we did so well in Arizona, we'll do great here. So we were doing shows, but we weren't playing as much. So we ended up, everyone had to get jobs. And I had a job at this cafe in Oakland, and which I really liked. I really enjoyed working at the cafe. But it's there that I first heard the Primus demo tape. It was a little 5-song EP that they made, and it was with Jay Lane on the drums.
Hmm.
And at the time, Major Lingo had all moved back to Arizona because it was too hard to make a living here, and
Hmm.
they went back to Arizona. And I wanted to stay because I loved it here.
Yeah.
When it's not raining like it is now. But yeah, so they went back, and a friend of mine was playing. We were closing one night, and he was playing the tape, and I thought, well, this is interesting music, because I came from the Major Lingo, which was more dance based,
Ah,
world
okay.
world beat, Afro mix with Celtic, with folk, with you know light, or not light, but I don't know, pop music like Talking Heads, The
Yeah.
Clash.
Okay.
We would
Yeah.
cover songs like that, but also originals too, original music. So that's where I
Mhm.
learned how to start composing my own stuff. And we were playing all original music, but it had to have groove. Um, and so there was that was the mix, but Primus was trio,
Yeah.
which,
Yeah.
which I related to, coming from loving Rush and
Yeah. Of
Zepp,
course.
um, coming from the rock world. And so um, he said, yeah, they're looking for a drummer because the drummer quit. So Jay had left his band, was going on because his other band that he was in got signed to like Warner Brothers or something. And they were kind of like a funk, pop funk band. And so he was quitting Primus. So I told him, I said, hey, well, just, if you can get info and I'll try to audition. And he didn't know I played drums. I said, yeah, I play drums. And he was kind of like, oh, okay. And I said, no, really? Oh, yeah, yeah,
Really, I do.
really, I do, and so he got Les's number, and we set up an audition, and yeah, we auditioned, and I auditioned with the original guitar player, Todd,
Yeah.
and it was me and Les, and we just kind of did little 10 seconds, 15 seconds of Rush riffs, and maybe, I don't know if we even did what else, but they liked it. I get a call a couple days later, and he's like, hey, good news and bad news. Good news is we like you, we want you to be in the band, but the bad news is Todd just quit. So now Les is by himself.
Yeah.
And so there's no band at all. And so I said, okay. And then he called up Larry, because he knew Larry.
Yeah.
And they finished some auditions, I think, and we ended up getting together and doing our first rehearsal, and playing songs from that demo tape and some songs that hadn't ever been recorded. And then we made Suck on This a month later, and that's how we did it. We just, each
Wow.
year, we just toured and made a record and toured and made a record and toured and made a record and toured, and,
Yeah.
so
I,
how that happened.
it's amazing how you guys built it, from the ground up like that. I mean, and that was around 89 when you joined the band.
Yes, correct.
Yeah.
It started in '89. Yeah.
Wow. I heard, I mean, I think we met for the first time, I think around 91. And
Okay.
the band already had, I mean, you were already in those couple of years, like, the following was just growing like crazy. And I remember you coming to Zildjian with, were you playing like on a big bill at like the football stadium? Could you have been playing at like Foxborough Stadium, like as part of I'm trying, like not a Lollapalooza, but like some sort of I don't know, man. I could have sworn you still had really long hair at that point.
Right.
Um, and that's I feel like my first recollection of meeting you. And then a couple of years later, we hung out.
With Rush,
You might have been playing with Rush. I
I
wonder.
mean, the only possible way to play those big events, it was probably Rush, because I think Seas of Cheese was the only record we had out at that time.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay.
It must have been, that was probably the only way it was with Rush. Yeah, we might have been opening for Rush.
Okay. And I remember when you did that, I guess I didn't put it together that was maybe the time that I met you. Because I would
I know.
have,
No, huh?
well, you know what, Tim, I'm not getting any younger, man. I'm
Me.
constantly, I'm, I used to have a really great memory, but my memory now, I'm starting to like,
And you look
miss.
you look amazing.
Oh,
You look like
so do you, buddy.
you look like you're 35.
I'll be, I'll be 64 in a couple of days, man. It's still
Damn.
kind of blows my mind that
I know, huh?
yeah, yeah. Anyway, we were talking about our kids and grandkids. My grandkids, like, I tell them how old I am, and I think it freaks them out because they can't imagine anybody being that old.
Oh, I know. I know. Gosh, yeah.
It's funny,
I
but
remember being a kid looking at 60 years old and thinking, yeah,
yeah,
that's old.
but now that's a young, 60
Yeah.
is a lot younger than it used to be when we were kids. But
Yeah, I'm
anyway,
hitting that next April.
I know. I realized that you're going to join the club soon. We've been waiting for you.
Thank you, man. Keep a seat warm.
I'll keep his seat warm. But I remember us really getting to hang out at that um, drum festival you played at in Denver or Boulder, Colorado, and
Oh
the
my
early
God.
with Dennis Chambers in the early '90s.
Yeah, so yeah, that was I don't know if we have pork soda out yet. Maybe. But yes, my very first drum clinic, if people don't know this, was me opening up, playing first, and then Dennis Chambers playing after me. And I and I still do this, Johnny. It's my own freaking issue. I just think nobody wants to see me. They want to see all that crazy power, magic, speed, finesse, all that, you know? And but I
But
did it and it seemed like people enjoyed it, but
yeah,
it was my own trip of just that's why I've always had a hard time with clinics, because my viewpoint was always that, oh, people want the show, the big fancy craziness, not what I do.
but I think you realized that day, Tim, you had so many fans there. There were so many people there to see Dennis, of course, but to see you too. And I kept trying to tell you that. And I listen, I get it, buddy.
I'm stubborn. Sorry.
No, and you're not, and it's not that you're even stubborn. It's just that like you're in a situation you'd never done that before. And I get it, man. You're going to go up and play drums in front of drummers with with nobody to hide behind. You know, when with Primus, you got Les and Larry up there, you can kind of blend into the background, so to speak. I totally get it,
And
man. You're
it's playing music.
yeah, yeah,
And back then, I didn't have backing tracks or stuff like that. You know, I don't have any of that stuff with
yeah,
Primus. You know, we make those records and then they're done and it's gone.
yeah, yeah.
And so,
But
yeah, yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna say I remember it being. I remember you feeling good at the end of it because you did a tremendous job. I mean, you just were yourself, and you. I think you played. There was a Gretsch kit that they had there for you. Does that? I think
Oh,
you weren't playing
I
Tama
wasn't
yet.
playing. No, I have my pork pie set.
Yeah, you had your pork pie.
But that makes sense. Yeah, a
I
Gretsch kit and probably some Octobans, you
yeah,
know.
and you killed it, man. You totally gave the
Thank you.
kids that came to see you. Yeah, they got what they wanted, man. It was, and that was when we discovered the Jerky Boys. Is what I was going to say. We were
All
listening.
right, those were coming out then. Yeah.
Oh my God, we were dying like during sound check playing the Jerky Boys. And
Right.
anyway, I have such great memories.
That's hilarious, dude.
Yeah,
Um, yeah, that was shocking in being in that position, I gotta say. Um, and that's kind of part of still what I battle with, you know, is that understanding that what I do, like a lot of people really like it.
yeah, yeah. That's well. I'm glad you said that. And I know it's probably taken you a long time to really accept that. That like forget what you think for a minute
Yeah.
and just realize like you make a lot of people really happy, and you should see the comments people are writing right now about you. Like what you've done for them, like the same way that you were inspired by Neil and Bonzo and Rayford and
Wow. True. Totally.
yeah,
I know, man. I struggle with it. I struggle with it. I struggle with it. I know, I know, I get it, you know?
yeah, yeah,
I guess it's just weird to think of myself as that guy,
yeah,
but I definitely am not immune to that. I'm not immune to that feeling of maybe I'm not good enough, you know?
yeah. And there's nothing wrong with being humble. I will say, by my recollection, Tim, I remember that first time with Dennis, and I don't have to tell you about Dennis. He's such a kind, giving soul, and I remember he was very like trying to make it comfortable
Yeah.
for you because he knew it was your first clinic and you were not comfortable. And I remember he was like, "Man, you're killing it, man. It's gonna be great, man. Come on, I wish I
Yeah.
could play some of that stuff, and
No, I gotta say that it was completely incredible because at sound check, he asked me how I did one of my double bass grooves.
right.
And I got to teach him like this is how I do it. And then he started doing it and like, oh wow, this is cool. This is cool. Like how freaking insane is that? Like
Yeah.
Dennis is going, how do you do this? You know, and I'm teaching him. So I do
Yeah.
remember that,
Yeah.
but that did not go to my head at all. That was just like, I can't believe that I something I did, this guy is like, how do you do that? It's just fucking crazy.
Yeah. But I'm telling you, there's so many guys. I remember around that time, I was talking with a friend of ours, great drummer, Vinny Colaiuta, and I
Oh,
happened to mention that I said something like I'm going to be out doing something with Tim Alexander. I said, and I think I said it sort of like, I don't know if you know who Tim is. He plays with Primus, and he was like, "Of course I know who he is. I love Primus. That guy's
oh,
like, I swear to God, he's like, yeah, yeah, man. Those guys are great, man. He's great.
oh,
He's like big fan, big fan. So yeah, I mean, Yeah. You had all these, you know, you probably didn't realize at the time how many people were like totally digging what you were doing, because it was so
Yeah.
different, so groundbreaking.
Yeah, that's wow.
Yeah.
That's really cool. I
And
mean, I it's weird when you're in it. At least for me, it was weird being in it because I'm not sitting there thinking about how great I am, and that I'm being innovative or doing any of that because this was just the music that was just coming out, just like with Neil and
mhm,
Bono. Um, I think they just did what they did. They weren't thinking about that stuff. At least I don't think they were. And I
probably
wasn't
not. Yeah.
wasn't thinking about it, um and so maybe if I had a part of me that was kind of like, okay, yeah, cool, pat on my back, that might be helpful, but it was there's a little bit of arrogance you kind of gotta have in the beginning of uh, that self belief that I'm good enough. I can do this. I'm gonna do some cool shit or whatever. Kind of need that as a
Yeah.
driving factor, and it's not a competition or anything like that, but it's definitely helps to push through all the tough times, that you'll experience going through a career like this, of having um, that little fire inside that's like gives you that boost. And sometimes I lose that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And and so that gets back to finding the creativity. How do you do that? Where do you get how do you find your belief and the meaning and all of that, when you're just banging on these drums, and how do they connect, back to that Elvis thing? How does that
Yeah.
just hitting rhythms and how it moves him and the audience? So, yeah, I don't know, man. We'll
No,
ramble.
I know. No, this is great, Tim. This is great. I think what you're saying makes so much sense. And I've always felt that there was just a special energy between you and Les and Larry. I mean, they've had other drummers in the band and they've always been a great band. But with you guys, there was like and I mean, you were able to come up with your own parts. I'm sure Les had input on what he wanted you to play, but you created those parts. And there was like a synergy there between all you guys that it just kind of came out of you, right? I'm guessing you didn't have to sit there and really think hard about what you were going to do. It just kind of poured out of you for the most
Yeah,
part.
it's in the early days we would sit and work on the songs, you
Yeah,
know, because we didn't have recording gear or anything, and so we were in a rehearsal room and uh, trying to write stuff for like Seas of Cheese album, and yeah, a lot of times there was input. Everyone would have input on everyone else because if you hear something, you think, what if you tried something else? If you had an
hmm,
idea, or if you tried this, and unless he can play drums, so he
yeah,
has an
yeah.
understanding, and
I
a
remember
lot
that.
of
Yeah,
it, yeah, a lot of that writing is basically always trying to make something feel good first. That's how I always approach it because um, the music I enjoy, I like it to move me. And I've also had times where I just like more of a fusiony type of thing where it's not about movement. It's like it's all kind of in the head, you know?
hmm,
And I get into that sometimes. But mostly it's about the feel and making it move, make your body move. That's what the driving thing for me was always. And so there was always that intention, and no matter what we were doing, it was making it feel good. And then how do you do that?
Yeah. Yeah.
There's many ways you can make something feel good, but what particularly is it that's going to make it kind of fit in the melodies that are happening, the type of effects that the other guys might be using
Hmm.
on the pedal? Like, is it distorted or is it clean? Um, is it real trippy? Is it just real dry and just in your face? Like, there's all these things to think about.
And can I just interrupt for 1 second, Tim? And because that brings up a great question, I'm going to assume I'm going to ask this question that when you guys would record, you're pretty much recording live, right? Like Larry's guitar sound is that's not overdub. That's you're hearing that live in the room. I mean, maybe he's added some things later, but you're playing off maybe that, like you say, that distorted sound or that effects that
Oh,
he's.
well, here's kind of the, I don't know, I don't want to say shitty, but here's the part about recording. Usually being a drummer, usually the goal right away is to get a good drum take first.
Yes. Yeah.
And everyone else's, their parts are not necessarily going to be the way they're being played right now. In the
Yep.
early
Okay.
days, in the early days, we had a lot of it mapped out. So when we were playing, yeah, everything was tracking live because you didn't have a lot of time. Time was money in
Yeah.
a studio. And hey, let's everyone play this now. We got to get this done. So in the early records, like our first one was a live record. So there's
Right.
no doing anything to that. Second, Frizzle Fry was a studio record, but most of that song, yeah, we all knew what we were doing, so we were tracking as much as we could live. Like you said, Seas of Cheese was tracking most of it live.
Hmm.
And after that, when we hit Pork Soda is when ADATs came out.
Ah,
So then we ended up buying our own ADATs and we had our own studio. We had our, not studio, but we had these warehouses where our gear was stored, and that's where we recorded the record. And I was in one room and the other guys were in the other room. So a lot of it uh, were kind of, at that point, it was about getting a good drum take. And then things would happen around it. So since 1992, 3, I got kind of disassociated from the actual final product because I was the first. Like I said, the drums are always trying to lay the foundation and be the first things that get down because then everyone can play to that, and then it's
hmm.
it's always on. Whenever drummers try to play to an existing track, it's always sloppy. At least for me, it's
Hmm.
never tight, never tight. It's always tighter when everyone plays to the drums. So over time, what happens is parts, bass parts, guitar parts might change. When I'm tracking, there might just be a bass idea. And I'm
Yeah.
basically trying to create a song concept in my head of dynamics, um, meaning, what are the big parts? What are the small parts? Where's the verses? All this stuff, even though there might not be any vocals yet,
Yeah. Yeah.
even just the riffs might be just an idea. So it got harder and harder to kind of be able to play the more that we ended up recording ourselves because the element of sitting and writing a song and then recording it wasn't happening. It was like written as it went. And sometimes, there were times when Les had like a whole idea. And there I had more of a concept of like, okay,
Hmm.
this is what the bass is doing and the vocals, but there's no guitar. Like I don't know anything what the guitar is going to do in the end.
Okay.
So it was really hard to play
Yeah.
with that. So as time went on, yeah, I think the process got more and more chopped up,
It's
or
Yeah, and I think it evolved to the way a lot of bands have, really, right? I
yeah,
mean, it's kind of the direction. uh, But yeah, and I guess I assume that you guys were still, even in some of those later records, like making the music the way you did early on, because I mean, it sounds that way. The finish, like when you listen to "My Name Is Mud," that's Pork Soda, I know, and maybe that's further along the process, but that sounds like you guys are all in the room, like it sounds so cohesive that way, like
yeah,
it's
that was the first time we recorded our own record.
yeah.
So we were playing together, and um, but we were in different spaces,
Yeah.
and on that record we couldn't even see each other because the drums were
Wow.
in one little warehouse, and
Yeah.
then Les was over two warehouses over, and Larry was in, the one next to me, and
Man.
then, it started really getting disconnected
Mm.
then. But yeah, at the same time, it's all about what you're hearing.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
that's what we were doing. We're just focusing on what we're playing and what we're hearing together.
Dig it. Well, can we play some of that music from that period?
If you want to, sure.
Yeah, we'll play. I was thinking maybe we'd play like maybe from Sailing we'd play Jerry Was a Race Car Driver.
How
And
about,
oh,
could you
go
do
ahead.
something else?
Absolutely.
Do 11.
Okay. Yep.
That's that's like one of my favorite tunes.
Okay. Hold on a second. I'm going to pull it up.
It's got a
I do.
great drum intro, so turn it up. Everybody turn it up.
Absolutely. All right. Give me 1 second, folks.
Hold on, before you start. So
Yeah.
this intro is inspired by another guy who really influenced me in the 80s, and that was Mark Brzezicki from Big Country.
Oh, yeah.
So they would record the drums, and they're Scottish band. So I guess in my mind, Scottish stuff is more marching, and
Hmm.
and they have that feel. But man, they recorded the drums. I mean, they were just so freaking loud in the mix. Like it was interesting
Yeah.
how amazingly huge they made his drums. So this intro was inspired by Mark Rizicki.
Oh, that's great. What a great setup. And
And it's in 11/8. That's why it's called 11.
yeah. Okay. And we'll talk a little bit more about it after we play it. All right. Here it comes. 11. I'm so glad you picked that song. Man. Oh, wow.
It's a
Yeah.
fun one, man. I like that one.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
just, especially live, because in that, I don't know if you can tell on the recording, but it kind of, the mix just separates, like the drums are off on one side in the middle, and we get all spacey, and but live we get really trippy, and it's a fun one to do.
Yeah, I'll bet. I'll bet, man.
It's scary though, because after doing it for so long, the 11/8 feels normal and it feels even. And sometimes I'd be playing and I would think, God, this feels good. And then I'd think, oh, wait a minute, did I just fuck it up and play it in 4 instead of the seven, the bar
Yeah.
of 11? Did I
Yeah.
play it at 12? And I've had that moment where I'm like, uh-oh, because it feels so normal to just do
Yeah.
this pattern over and over and over. And after 30 years of it, it's just like you don't even think about
Yeah.
it.
But that just tells you like that you were like you're so in the zone, right? I mean that it's
Oh yeah,
yeah, it's
totally.
so comfortable and so grooving that you're not even thinking about the odd time factor of it. You're just it feels like 4/4, like just yeah.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
that's I was just listening to it and thinking about it. That's a total example of the complexity living in the simplicity.
Yeah.
Because that whole thing is a simple 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1. So it's a waltz.
Yeah.
One,
Yeah.
2, 3, 1, 2, 3. That's how I approached it. But that foundation has to be there. But for me, I could never just sit there and just do that. It's like there's always got to be some distraction that's hitting, that's doing something, that's making movement, or you
Mhm.
know, little all these little things that are keeping it moving. And there's also this idea, like I talked with Steve Smith about in that song. I do it sometimes on the hi-hats where I play an even 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3 over top of the 11. And it happens every now and then. And it usually happens when I'm getting kind of a little bit like, okay, this is getting monotonous just doing the same thing. So I start doing that. And it's the idea of um, kind of approaching it like how a drum machine would. Because in
Mhm.
the 80s, you like having a drum machine, you make one pattern and then you play another one underneath it, and
Yeah.
you know eventually they might sync up, kind of like a King Crimson Bruford groove where
Yeah. Yeah.
playing
If
odd enough and eventually it comes back together at one point,
right,
but
right.
I remember talking to Steve about it. He did in that song "Don't Stop Believing." We talked about this where he was doing this pattern almost like a drum machine, like as if you program the drum machine and certain things happen steady and they're not round.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I noticed that about there's some hi-hat patterns in there that I bring in for that purpose of creating that kind of a little bit of a tension underneath to change the feel.
Yeah. That's not in perfect time with it, but it kind of circles it. But the groove never is interrupted, Tim. That's the great thing
Right.
about that is like,
That's the goal, man. Never,
yeah,
never interrupt the feel and then enhance it with all this other stuff around it.
yeah, yeah.
And then not so
That,
much stuff, and that's the thing. You enhancing it with things that are keeping it moving forward, because it's real easy to just sit there and play the 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, one,
yeah,
two, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and then that's like here. And so my head, I'm like, okay, that's the foundation.
hmm,
Now I bring in all these little things to just kind of if you're listening to it, all of a sudden there's this change, and it just kind of brings a different feel to everything that's been happening so far.
Yeah.
Small alterations in the feel.
See, I would guess I was trying to get to that earlier. What makes you so special is that, you envision that, you know what I mean? You have that vision of creating a part like that, for average mortals like me, just being able to play that 11, that part in 11 would be enough. That'd be enough of a challenge to not fuck up the 1 2 3 1 2 3
Well, if you
one
do it
two three.
long enough, you'll be able to do it. Yeah. But
No, but well,
yeah, and that song is that recording is usually we did that like one take, maybe two
really,
takes. Yeah, there was not a lot of punching in or punching out back then.
yeah, man.
There was the one, there was a whole ending section that my drums got erased. Not in that song and at the end of the record, but yeah. But yeah, that's the kind of some of the stuff that I'm thinking about and incorporating with taking a groove like that and giving it movement and changing the feel throughout without disrupting the foundation.
Yeah, that's exactly.
A
And
big
you,
that's a big goal for me when I play.
yeah, you do, buddy. You do it. You nail it. Um,
Thanks.
can we play maybe a little bit of "My Name Is Mud"? I know
Okay.
that's one that
Oh my
it.
God, that one again? No.
I
It's all
know,
right.
I know. It's like I'm playing the hits, so to
Dude,
speak.
it's
But
so I listen. Oh my God, when I hear that, it's so sloppy. Like what me especially at the end, it just it's
well,
unbelievably.
I
But
can
what?
see I can see you being critical. I've heard you play this song live a bunch of times, and it never
Well,
sounded
yeah,
sloppy.
it's when we recorded it. It's like the bass and drums aren't really locked that well. Live, we lock really well.
Yeah, yeah.
There was talk of releasing live recordings that might come out maybe this year, hopefully. I don't know. But yeah. So on the recording, yeah, it is what it
Okay,
is.
we'll play some of it. We'll play some of it. Just your the drum part is just it's too incredible not to play. Sorry, Tim, but I
Oh,
got to
no
overrule
worries.
you on this one. Here it comes.
Thank you.
Okay, buddy.
I'll be right back while you're playing this.
Okay, buddy.
My name is Wood. My name is Bud.
Where are you going, city boy?
I defy any drummer to say that they won't be hearing that groove in their sleep tonight. No, there's no way. There's no way you can listen to that and not have that stay in your head, man. That's like so heavy, Tim. So heavy.
Oh
Man.
man, thanks. Yeah, that.
Probably, yeah.
Go ahead.
No, I was going to say it probably drove you crazy that you were hearing things that you didn't want to hear. I don't know, but I think that that's just some masterful drumming there. Just
Oh no, it's great, man. Thank you. Thank you.
yeah. Many people commented on the quarter note on the hi hat too. Like another one of those things that you were just talking about, where you've got the groove underneath it, but you're playing something, and it just makes the whole thing. And then like the little China splash hits that accent it and color it.
Right. Yeah, the two elements to that are kind of like that foundation. One is that hi-hat, and the idea is to never let that stop,
Yeah,
never change it. So what can you do underneath that? So having the steady 1, 2, 3, 4, and then matching the bass guitar parts with the kick and snare,
yeah,
finding what is the groove in that, because that part, that bass part initially came from like some crazy exercise he was doing. He was just going and then it slowed down, and then it turned into again, you know.
yeah, yeah.
So there are several ways you could approach that song, you know. And for me, that's what I always tried to do, is find, if it's responding to like the bass, you know, how can I make that feel good? Because that part by itself doesn't feel good. And
Mm.
it's just like an exercise, you know. And so that's the challenge, yeah. And keeping that quarter note hi-hat is what gives it its kind of continuity.
Pulse. Yeah, yeah,
Pulse. The pulse happens with that hi-hat versus a kick drum.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And so
It's
that's kind of how I flip the approach on that one. And then every now and then, whenever there's a stop, sometimes there's silence. Sometimes there might be an extra bass drum hit, boom,
mhm.
boom, in the silence, or yeah, just little things. It's hard to remember now,
Yeah.
but yeah,
No, like little, yeah, little splash hits, little like There's like a
Right.
rest, and then there's like a
Yeah. And that's all to keep interest. Because if it's just this thing going over and over and over, man, it's just like it. I think you lose your focus. You're not paying attention because you know what's coming. You
hmm
know, the more
hmm
you listen to something and it doesn't change, you kind of like, okay, I'm assuming it's just going to keep doing that.
Yeah, yeah,
And I think that's what I do in my playing is never let it be stagnant like that to where um, it's predictable.
yeah.
I don't
No,
I
it's
don't think I'm predictable.
no. I was going to just say you are not predictable. No one would
Yeah,
ever say that in any
right.
way. You're playing or in your life.
Oh my God.
You've always been
Yeah.
unpredictable. Like when I first saw you with your head shaved, I was
All
like,
right.
"Whoa, you got a great head of hair, man. What are you doing?"
It was getting in the way. It was getting thin, and it was just
Uh,
not looking not looking good. So yeah, I
yeah,
shaved my head back in 94 or 95.
yeah. Yeah.
Uh, yeah.
Now
So,
I'm going to play one more song.
oh really?
It's called Winona's Big Brown Beaver. Now, I just love this song. I love what you played. I'd love to
Okay.
get your comments on this because
All right.
uh, I think you're tearing it up on this song. The whole band is obviously, and we'll do a little discussion afterward. Here we go.
Two.
Impulse ride, baby.
Hi hat.
Oh, hiya. Yeah.
My mama's got herself a big brown beaver and she shows them off to all her friends. One day you know that beaver tried to leave her, so she gave him up with cyclone fence. Along came Lou with the old baboons and recognize that smell. It smells like seven legs. That beaver ain't got a smell. Now Rex was a Texan out of New Orleans and he traveled with the carnival shows. Ran bump cars, sucked cheap cigars, and he candied up his nose. He got wind of the big brown beaver, so he thought he'd take himself a peek. But the beaver was quick, and he grabbed him by the kiwis and he ate his boy.
Here's the impulse.
Yeah. Man, that song rocks hard. That is such a killing tune. Man, you're playing the whole band, the whole everything.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, you got to be proud of that, right? I mean, that's a song that I mean, I think it's got a little bit of everything of you in there. It's got groove, it's got chops, it's got ideas, creativity. It's got it all in there.
Yeah, they're definitely. I could see that. Yeah, and that's another one of those examples of all of the complexities living on that groove and
Yeah.
just expanding on it and um, kind of minimizing it at the same time, finding out where it can go and where it needs to kind of go back, if that makes any sense, in terms of the amount of like notes. Because a lot of time, one of the things I'm doing there, I don't know if this is serious drum talk now. One of the things I'm doing there is in the groove, it sounds like boom boom cut, ka boom boom cut, ka boom
Yeah.
boom. So every 1 2 1 2 ka, brr. Yeah, it's
Oh,
a 1 2 snare, and then I do double double in between. Bum bum
yeah.
ka, dun dun 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 ka. And it's so subtle, it sounds like a
Yeah.
little buzz roll on the snare, but it's actually a double on the hi-hat and a double on the snare. And that was just for me to keep my brain
Yeah.
interested. Otherwise, I'm just sitting there going boom boom cat, dun dun
But
cat.
I didn't pick up the double on the snare. I think I picked up maybe the double on the hi-hat, but I guess I
It
really got to
falls
listen.
the first two notes fall on the when the hi-hat first hits, 1 2 3 4. So it'd be the fourth hi-hat hit. 1 2 3, brrr. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Fourth, that starts the what do you call it? Little part. It's on the fourth hi-hat note is a 1 2, and then a double on the snare
On the
immediately
snare.
after it.
Yeah.
And that leads into the one on the hi-hat. Boom boom ka, brrr, dum.
Yeah. And the fact that you play that song at such a fast tempo anyway,
Oh
you know what I
man.
mean?
It's really hard to play fast
Yeah.
nowadays.
I was going to say, and I
The
think
groove's much harder nowadays.
well, when I first heard that, Tim, I think what I loved about it was the tempo. It just right out of the gate, like it had all this energy, you know what I mean? And you were just driving it. It never feels like you're rushing it, but you're just pushing it. It's just like it's grooving. It's just like a locomotive. I think like the way
Yeah.
Bonham does that, like in rock and roll, it never feels rushed, but it's like he's just driving a locomotive, and it's got that same kind of feel to me, like
Right.
brudoo-dip, brudoo-dip, brudoo-dip. Yeah, and it
Yeah. Yeah, and that's the idea too, is that concept of driving. So in that song, to create that motion, I had to add all these other little things because the bass part's already kind of got that boom boom got but a
mhm.
little thing on the bass notes. And so then it's taking that and using those kind of notes, which are 1 2 3s, which I do on the bass drums. I do a 1 2 3. I do wait. Yeah,
Like a
I do
triplet with your.
yeah, it's a right left right
Oh, okay, yeah,
with the feet. And so I do that quick 1 2 3. So that's creating the movement. That's creating more movement than just a boom boom ka, boom boom ka. Now it's brum boom ka, brum boom ka. So it steps up. It gives me another layer. When the
yeah,
bass layer is that boom boom ka, boom boom ka. Now I've got this brum dum ka, brum dum ka, brum dum ka, which brings it up. So it's focusing on those dynamics, on how to make those changes and still keep the feel, keep
Yeah.
the drive, because if I do something that's going to distract from the drive, it always drives me crazy. Once I create a feel, I have to keep it moving, keep it going. And I always try to fit everything around that. So
Yeah. Well, man, that all works. What you did for that song, just it's like it's again, it's a perfect track. It really is. It's masterful. It's
thank you.
yeah, man. And I know I've kept you a long time today, longer than I said I would.
Oh, all right,
And
yeah. Oh, it's
thank
fun. We're cruising through.
we're cruising through. I want to take a minute and talk about your online drum school, which I know is something you're focusing on now. And I'll put all the information for that in the show notes. But maybe you could talk about it a little bit and what your kind of concept is for that.
Yeah, so right now I'm like you had mentioned for your t-shirts. I right now, as of today until midnight is the deadline. And it's a free scholarship I'm giving away of one-on-one private coaching with me.
Wow, man.
And it's for 12 weeks. So it's, if we're doing a lesson, a session once a week, that's 12 of them. So doing that for free, and some extra little goodies in there too.
Yeah. Right now, how could someone sign
Merchandise,
up? Yeah.
lovely.
How can somebody sign up for that right now, Tim, for your
So if they go to stickacademy.com,
okay. Yeah.
maybe put the www in front of it.
Gotcha.
Heard
Yep.
there might be some issues. I'm trying to get it fixed, but it should be fixed. The www in front of it, stickacademy.com. And right there on the page is the application. And it's for people to just submit to possibly win the free scholarship. And I'll be announcing it tomorrow. And then I'll be introducing more stuff later. But right now I'm focusing on the private one-on-one stuff. And it's about all the stuff we talk about today,
Mhm. Yeah.
learning how to find creative ways to play, to get inspired, to connect to your feeling of what you're trying to express. How can you do that on the drums? And understanding just from experience, maybe what I've been through. How can I help others who might want to move in that direction, or just enjoy drumming and music and rhythm, and to be more of a help. It's not like drum lessons. I'm not thinking about, here, let me
Yeah.
show you how to do rudiments. There's so many great teachers out there, and I am self-taught. And for me, I think there are some fundamentals that I think are really important, but it's more about getting into the person to figure out like the stuff we've been talking about, and that's what this thing is all about, trying to
Yeah.
help people get to that next level.
That's
Because I
great.
know there's probably a lot of people that get frustrated where they are, and I've been there, and I can definitely help bring ideas that can help you flourish.
That's
You know,
great, man. Yeah.
so that's kind of the idea behind it, and yeah, it's right on that website right now. First thing I'm going to do right now is just give away the scholarship, and then um, going to bring in all of the more holistic approach to drumming. That's more than just playing a drum set, body, trying to, you need your body to do this kind of work. So things we can do to strengthen, to do it properly too, so you're not hurting yourself,
Yeah. Yeah.
and the
And
mental game
the
as
men,
well.
absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because it all really, really, really matters. So
Yeah. And cool merch. I see you got that cool shirt you're wearing.
yeah,
That's
man.
available. That's really cool.
Herbs. So my nickname is Herb for those who don't know it. And you go to herbstees.com, Herbs Tees, Tees. I've got some really cool shirts with, as you can tell, we're doing some like
That's
spiritual embodiment with rhythm and drumming. And yeah, it really is a reflection of that idea of connecting with our own rhythm, your own voice. And that's what I can help people find.
that's great. And I was going to say that's a way hipper shirt than I have. I gotta own it, man. It's just,
Yours is
that's,
awesome.
well, it's,
I like it. I like it. Yeah, it's really cool.
well, I'm going to send you one, Tim. When we get finished, I'm going to get your address, and Santa's going to come a little early this year for you because you've
Oh
been a good
man,
boy.
that'd be awesome. Yeah,
My
you send me
pleasure.
your address too. I'll
I will.
see if I can get one of these. Or there's many different designs, but yeah, this was one of the ones I got early on just to
That's
see how
that's
they look.
that's badass, man. That's well.
Of
This has
all
been
the kick drums.
this has been so great, and people dug it so much. And I don't want to leave anything out, but I mean, obviously the big news is that you've left Primus, but this is great because you're telling us now what you're going to be doing. I think that was a big question for a lot of people is, kind of what's next for Tim Alexander, and this
Well,
is going to.
yeah, I'm focusing on that right now, and I also creatively, I also paint big abstract paintings, and oh well, can I show you real quick?
Of course, yeah. Come on,
All right,
yeah.
we're going to take a quick walk.
Let's take a tour.
I've got it. Well, not really a tour, but let me just show you real quick. Why are my screens getting dark all the time?
This is like bonus content right now.
Here's some extra bonus content. So let me just show you. Here is something I just finished.
Wow, man. Look at that.
Just for scale, I'll stand next to it.
Oh man. And you're probably 6'1"?
No, I'm just right at under 6 feet.
Okay. Wow, man. That is beautiful, Tim. I didn't know you painted. I mean, I didn't know you painted like this,
Yeah, I know. I've been doing it for like over 15 years.
Man.
So this is another way that I create, and yeah, you can see how wild it gets.
It's beautiful.
There's many, many layers of things going on in here. And it's kind of like resembles the approach to drumming. It is kind of like that. Like it's complex, and yet it's got to feel good. And then when I look at that painting, it's got to feel good.
Yeah. And it's got to just be free, right? It's got to just.
And there's so much complexity to it,
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah, but that's another thing I do. And I do have a website of some stuff that I have up there. I'm in a gallery in San Francisco called the Geffen Gallery. If anyone's ever in San Francisco, right near Union Square, there's a gallery there. And
you have other pieces in there?
yeah, I have some there.
Wow. Fantastic. That's
Yeah,
great.
man.
Okay. Well, I'll make a note of that as well. Geffen Gallery, Union Square.
Geffen, only one F.
Okay. Got it. Not like David Geffen.
No.
Okay.
But yeah, that's another thing I do for creativity, and yeah, I do sell those too. And you never know if people want to get some customized big abstract paintings, they can reach out.
Fantastic, man.
Yeah,
Um,
man.
and obviously you're not done making music. I mean, we're gonna hear from you somewhere down the road, I'm sure, with
Yeah, man.
something.
I don't know at this moment what that is, when, and what that is. Yeah.
Yeah. And you don't even have to don't even think about, I mean, I'm just saying that. I'm not even asking that question. I'm just saying
Yeah.
I think knowing you, I think it'll be when you feel the time is right and the vibe is right and the creativity is there, we're gonna hear from you. I think anyway.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. Yeah. I think, yeah, it's really hard to know, man.
Yeah.
I just, you just don't know where to go. I'm kind of not sure
Yeah.
where I'm
Okay.
at. And so right now, it's about taking what I know, helping people that are hungry for it or really have a desire to, pursue rhythm and drumming. And if they want to learn some of the ideas and things that I have, that's the spot to go, stickacademy.com.
Yeah.
And of course, I have the social Instagram and Facebook and stuff. So,
Yeah. Great. I'll
yeah.
put all that in there as well too. All your
Oh,
everywhere
thank you.
they can reach you. Yeah. Well,
All
Tim,
right.
thank you so much for being here with
Yeah,
me
Johnny,
today.
nice seeing you again.
You too, buddy. Man, I hope I get to see you. Well, hang with me for
Right.
1 minute if you would.
Okay,
And
yeah. I'll wait.
all right, hang out 1 second. I'll end the stream. But I want to thank everybody for watching today. A big hand, everybody, for Tim Alexander. And Tim, thanks for being so generous with your time today, too.
Thank
Really
you.
appreciate it. Thanks for watching, everybody. Hang tight, Tim. And we'll see y'all real soon. All right, well, that's my show. If you enjoyed it, give it a like, leave me a comment. Don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel, and you can listen to the podcast on all podcast platforms. And a reminder, Live from My Drum Room t-shirts are available in sizes extra small to double XL, $25 in the US. That includes shipping. Here is my Venmo payment information at John D. Christopher 2. And don't forget to include your size and your shipping address. Very important information. 100% of the proceeds for all t-shirts go toward a scholarship I've created with the Percussive Arts Society. You're donating to a great cause when you buy one of these t-shirts. So once again, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Remember, no drummers are harmed on any episode. And drummers, when in doubt, leave it out. See you soon.